Okay, so we are starting with our workshop. So this will be the final leg of our workshop, just for knowledge sharing purpose. Now, some part of this workshop may be relevant and may be useful for your group project. And of course, the whole idea is for you all to experiment more and more and explore the other features. And sometimes when you explore certain features, you may encounter some problems, but how you want to actually overcome that problem. So that's the whole idea. So for next week, in terms of your report guideline that has been given, is it also inclusive of your slides? What are the things to present? No, right? Oh yeah, for the slides also is given, and also for the report guideline. So you're all going to come in front here and present 10 minutes. So later I'll just arrange the time slot such a way that the degree and diploma students can alternate the time sessions. And also we'll share the judging form so that you know what are the features that that will be evaluated. Okay, so we are going to continue with our workshop. Previously, what we have actually done is this workshop, this particular app is actually extracting data from our spreadsheet. So in last week, we created a spreadsheet with the name of places. So what we have done is we have selected several places, the images relevant, the description, the latitude and the longitude. So this is what we have actually done. And in our app, what it does that we use the data list viewer to extract the data and view it here. So whenever we click, and also what we have done is we have included another set of block for the info screen so that you'll be able to see, extract the images, and you'll be able to see the name and also the description. And we have also added the next button whereby we take the index of the next row and we'll be able to view all the list of items. And if you click next, you'll go back to the first row. Is that okay up to this point? Now, as I did mention last week that the row ID is not following this number. Just so that you will be able to see how the row ID looks like, we will just do a temporary setup, experimental setup. So let's go back here. Let's go to the info screen. So if you click on the info screen, what we're going to do is we're going to add a component which is known as the list viewer. So we're just going to drag and just put it on top here. Sorry. Okay, so the list viewer comes on top. This is just a temporary one, just to see how the row ID looks like. This is the temporary setting. So this is the list viewer under your info screen, right? So let's go to blocks. Now we have this block whereby when the info screen opens, it does all these things, right? It shows the first image, the first text, and also the description that we select from the previous. And also one thing that we did last week is that remember that we have created a variable ID list to capture all this ID. And this is the purple color block is where it's actually getting the data of, this is the name of the sheet 1, and you're looking at ID, so it captures all the ID and it keeps in the variable ID list. Now currently what we are doing in the next element is we actually assigning index to each of those ID in the list, but we do not know how the ID lists look like, right? So we're just playing with the index. So here what we're going to do is, since we add the list viewer, so we're going to set the list viewer, just put down here, adjust it. But this list viewer, it actually will show, right? The list viewer. List viewer text items too. So remember that whatever list of values that we extract, all the IDs is actually saved in this variable ID list, right? So what is the variable that we should put here? ID list. Very good. So you're setting the list viewer text items to the app variable ID list. Now, if you go to screen 1, let's try it out. If you preview, and then if you click any one of this, do you see this? This is actually your row ID. So it's not the simple straightforward number. It's a generated row ID. This is just for you to get an idea on how the row ID looks like. And that's why we cannot, it's not a simple integer value so that we can straight away add 1 to the row ID. That is why we are actually using index. Is everyone okay up to this point? So if you're okay up to this point, you can remove back that list viewer. This one you can just delete it. So when you delete it, automatically if you go under the block, then this one also you want to delete it. Okay, just delete the list viewer. Just to show you how the row ID looks like. All right, everyone okay? Now, if you look under your blocks, maybe just let me just make it small. So I'm just rearranging it back in this way so that you'll be able to see. Now, whenever you're doing certain programming, you should always make sure that you're optimizing the code. You are able to optimize the code. Okay. So here, if you notice that there are some duplications, right? Do you see that there are some duplications? These 3 blocks and these 3 blocks are exactly the same. So in programming, or usually you will try to optimize the code. You don't want unnecessarily to duplicate the codes and replicate the codes. So what do you use? So in C programming, you have learned something, right? Do you remember? What is that you can actually repeatedly call? Yes, very good. It's functions. So in today's attendance very bad, huh? We'll take attendance, but again, you all are responsible for attendance. If not enough 80%, you all are responsible. So here also we have a function. We can actually use function. So if you see under the available blocks, there are this function. So we're going to use this function block. We're not going to return any value. So we're just going to drag this. Basically, this will create a new function to do something. So this one we can give a name, like how you can actually give your functions a specific names, right? So this one maybe you can give a name as display places. So whatever naming that you're actually giving here, that is actually the name of the function that you're creating. And what we're going to do, we're going to, you see these 3 blocks, that are the same. We're going to take and put it under display places. Here. This one is not here, this is supposed to be here. This is display places, right? But here just now we took out all this block here, so we need to call the function here. So if you click back on function, you'll see that they are automatically display places comes. So you can grab this and put it here. So when it actually calls this function display places, it does all these three. Same thing, right? And the same thing you have it here. So this one you remove, get rid of it, and you can actually duplicate places and put it back here. So now you'll be able to see you are able to optimize the code in a much more better way, right? And you can use this repeatedly. So the idea is whenever you are having repeated or the same block, you can actually use function. So any question up to this point? Everyone able to follow? Shall we move on? So now we have actually created screen 1 and info screen. And if we look at our Google Sheet, we have made use of the place name, the image, and the description. So what is yet to be used is the latitude and the longitude, right? These are the things that we want to include. So for that, when you actually click a particular thing, you also may, or when you actually call the function map, you want to actually create a marker on all these various places. So in order for us to do that, let us add another new screen. So we're gonna add a blank screen, and this blank screen we can rename it to map screen. Okay, so now it's the map screen. So under this map screen, Thunkable already has a block which has the map. So if you scroll down, you'll be able to see that there is a map. So you drag and drop your map function, so the map will come. And we can also include a button so that from the map screen, we're always able to go back to the screen 1. So let us include a button. So this button we can rename as home button, and the text we can actually put it as home. Of course, feel free to change the colors or however that you like. Everyone okay up to this point? Everyone okay? Now this one map screen enables you to go to home. So that means in the screen 1, in the home also, we need to have include a button so that we can go to the map. So we can add a button. So this one we can name as the map button. And this one you can go to map. Everyone able to follow? If you have any issues, just do let me know. Now in terms of the functionality, can I proceed? So we need to assign functionality block to the go to map and also home map, right? So let's go to screen 1 and go to block. So you will see the map map button. So this is a simple one. So when map button is clicked, what we want to do, we basically want to navigate to the map screen, right? So that's under control, navigate to map screen. Simple. And the same thing that you want to do for the map screen as well, right? When you go to map screen, there is home button. So when home button is clicked, you want to navigate it back to the screen one, correct? Now for this, whenever we include the map feature, we cannot preview it. You can't preview. So if you look at here, there is this one, this entrance, let's go to map. So if you click go to map, you say please view the map component on the physical device. So you need to use the Thunkable Live, otherwise you won't be able to see. So let me see how many of you are able to see what appears in your map. So if you click, then you'll be able to view the map. But what map are you viewing? What map are you viewing? Are you getting? It is actually showing San Francisco, right? The developers of Thunkables are from San Francisco. So for that, we need to tweak on the map properties. Okay, you need to tweak on the map properties. So how can we do that? If you go to the map screen, today also after this workshop, you have time to actually finish up and brush up on your group project. So we'll finish the workshop fast, so not to worry. So click on the map property. So under map, you see the simple and also advanced. And if you see under the advanced, the provider, there's sometimes is actually mentions Google. For Android phones, you can actually leave it as Google. For Apple phone, you can actually delete this. It'll give you some sort of the Apple map. If you use Google, the maps will follow the Google style. If you remove Google, keep it empty like this, then it will be an Apple version. So you can actually see for app, those who are using Apple phone, you can actually delete the provider. Everyone okay? This is under the advanced setting, under the provider. For those using Android, you can just leave it as, the provider can just leave it as Google, no problem. Okay, so let's go to the simple settings. Do you see this latitude and longitude? This is what sets that particular place. So let's say now you're doing a particular app and you want your map to start off at a particular location. So let's go to map. Okay, let's say assuming that, where's unit? Okay. Let's say you want to start somewhere here. So what you can do, you can just capture the latitude and longitude of this location. and you can actually paste it here. Oh, sorry, sometimes when you copy and paste from the, so let me just put it in the notepad. As you change, suddenly you'll see on your map it will change accordingly. So do you see now your map will refocus back, and from San Francisco, it now shows at Unit 10. But are you satisfied with what you are viewing? So you can actually choose on the zoom. Let's say if you put zoom 5, what happens? As you increase the zoom, what happens? It actually focuses even more, right? Is Aaron able to get? Checking mine also. So when you put the zoom, it actually, you can choose how much you want to actually zoom. Sometimes you may find, oh, this is too close. You can even put -10. If you put -10, what happens? It shows the whole Asia. So let's put -1. So it's up to you as a developer how much you want the starting point of the zoom to be. 0 or you want close. So you can actually set 1 or 2, maybe just put 2, whatever it is. So when you do that, it will show. But here you should be mindful of the zoom numbers, because let's say in this case, when after this, when we're going to add the markers, right? If you want to view the markers, then you should select the correct zoom. So let us put at 0 for now. So I'm just showing you what are the things that you can actually play around. So everyone okay? Everyone managed to do? So the next and also the last part of this workshop is that we want to actually add the markers. We want to add markers. So for that, under the map screen, when you go to the block, when you click on the map, so when map, okay. Oh sorry, not when map 1, sorry. When the screen opens, where's the screen? Map screen, yeah. So when the map screen opens, so what we're going to do, of course, this one, the button, we have already that settles for to go back to the home screen. Now when the map screen opens, here is where we want to automatically load the markers. We want to automatically load the markers. So here if you notice that we actually have 3 locations, right? We actually have 3 locations. So which meaning that we need to perform a loop to check each row for the latitude and longitude for how many locations that you actually have. If you have 3, then of course we have actually 3. So it meaning to say that now we need to perform a loop to iterate all those various locations and places. So when we want to perform the loop, so we go under the control. So we're going to use this count with I from one range to another range, and you increment by 1. This is basically a for loop, right? So we're gonna add this in. Of course, now this one you're going to count the variable I from 1 to 3 because we are only having 3, right? But later we can't be doing this. We can't be doing 3 because what if we have more data? So we did something similar in our previous last week's class where we actually checked the length of the particular variable. So we will actually do that later on. Now before we actually grab the data from the Google Sheet, again here we want to create variables. So here we want to actually create maybe we can create 4 variables. One variable is to store the latitude value. Second one is on the longitude, the name, and also the description. Right? That's what we actually having here, right? So basically, we want to get this latitude, longitude, the place, and also description. 4. So we're going to create 4 variables here. So let us create the variables. So initialize a variable. And we're going to set this to, empty list. So this is going to be a list, right? So that's why we're going to use empty list. So let's duplicate this. This is 1, 2, 3. Okay, got 4. So this one will be latitude list, and this one will be longitude list. This will be the placed list. Have we created any place list? No, right? Just making sure. Place list and also description list. 4 lists in total. Everyone okay up to this point? Guys at the back, if you are not participating in the workshop, at least you should keep quiet. Don't distract others. Is that okay? So here, when the map screen opens, we have initialized the variables, right? These are the variables. And when the map screen opens, we need to capture the data from the Google Sheet. So remember that we have to use the data source. So let's go to the variables. We're going to set the variables. Right? We have created the variables. They are empty containers. Now we want to capture and put it in the variables. So this one you can actually duplicate because we need 4, right? We need 4 of this. And this one is of course ID. This will be, okay, maybe this one. You can put the latitude, place, and also description. And here we want to capture. So in order for us to capture the data, we have to go to the data sources. So we're going to use the list of values. This is how we're going to get, right? So take it, place it here. So this one we're going to duplicate. This one duplicate, and this one duplicate. So for places, sheet 1, so this is all correct. So this one, you make sure you select the correct one. Latitude, this will be longitude, this will be place correct, and this will be the description. Everyone okay up to this point? So this will enable us to capture all those values and keep it in our variables. And now here we are actually checking, we're creating a loop, right? One by one we are actually going through the various rows. So here, in order for us to add a marker, in the map function there is an easy option for us to add marker. Do you see this? Call add marker. So drag and put here.
So map 1 or map screen?
Map 1. This is map. This is map function. Map screen we only use the when map screen opens. To add the marker we need to look at the map 1, which is the map. So here you can see that the add markers gives you the option of latitude, longitude, title, description, and pin color. So the pin color means the marker color. The marker color is now red. You can actually change it to whatever color. So now for the latitude, longitude, title, and description, we are actually going to get it from the list. So because we're getting from the list, so we need to go to the list. You can actually see, where is it? Yes, we're going to use the get in list. So we're going to put it here. And remove this. So in which list that we are looking? This is on the latitude list, right? So remember that this we are doing a loop. When I is actually 1, you want to get the latitude in the latitude list. You want to get number. Here is using number 1. But what we should be replaced with? If you're doing the loop, what should be here? If we keep this as 1, even though you're doing the looping, this value will always remain the same, right? So what this should be? The tips is you're doing a loop. You need a changing value here, right? What represents the changing value in the loop? Which variable? In the loop got how many variables? Here. How many variables are there? Are you sure? 2. What are the variables? The for loop, there's only one variable, right? What is that? I. I is the variable. So what should be here? It should be I, right? Because you want to follow the value of I. So if you go on variable, you'll be able to see I now because you included the for loop, right? So put it here. Managed to understand what we're actually doing? Because you're doing in a for loop and you're actually getting the latitude in the list where you cannot put number 1. Otherwise, for all the 3 locations, you'll end up pointing to the same location. We are doing the loop, right? currently we have 3 entries, so that's why we put until 3. But this one needs to follow the I value. If it's 1 means, then this one should get the latitude from the first one. And the same thing goes for the longitude as well. Same thing goes for the title as well. And the same thing goes for the description as well. But make sure you change now. This one should be longitude list. This one should be place list. This one should be description list. Now what happens if you do this in the loop? In the first loop where I is 1, it will get the latitude of the first one, longitude of the first one, title of the first one, description of the first one. Then what happens? It will increase by 1, then it will become 2. Then what happens? It will extract the latitude, longitude, title, description for the second one. Managed to understand the principle? Now, as I mentioned earlier, here we have actually put 3 because, of course, we know got 3, but you can't be counting. If you have a lot of things, then it's difficult for you to count and put the values. So earlier we have actually, in the list, we have actually got this right. We have used this length of. You can use this length of. We can remove this. So length of which variable? Basically, there are 4 variables, right? That, long, place, and description. All these variables actually have the same length, correct? So you can choose any one of it. So maybe for this case, maybe I'll just choose the lat list. Do you understand when I say that all these 4 variables have the same length? So just by taking checking the length of one variable is sufficient. Is that okay? Now, if you, oh yeah, of course, again the same thing. Can't show it here, right? Well, map. Do you see now it actually have 3 markers? Sorry, I couldn't show on the screen because the app is not working. Do you notice one thing, that when you touch on the marker, the description, actually the name is not coming. Why? Yeah? Oh, okay. I did something wrong here. This is the app variable place list. No wonder the name. Actually, when you touch on this, you should be able to see the name, which is the title, right? So now it should be okay. Yeah. So now you can see Unit 10 Sports Arena. Then the description is sports activities. Decentrum. When I click, you'll be able to see the good food choices. So sorry, earlier I wrongly put place ID. It's supposed to be place list because that's the variable that we have actually set, right? So when you're doing your app in this way, and when you have a certain event or things like that, you can actually set the marker, and when people touch on it, they'll be able to see what activity and what's the description. If you're not doing this workshop now, of course, you won't be able to see won't be able to understand what I'm saying. So this is the interesting way that you can actually add certain options and things like that. And you can actually zoom in a particular map and and view, I can add markers and add the title and also description for this map. So is there any question up to this point? So this is something for you to actually be exposed and to learn. So with that, we will end the workshop here, and you all have room to fine tune and work on your report. Remember that you have to submit